A Supreme Court decision just landed that shocked every legal expert in the country. 9 justices, 0 disagreements, and a ruling that could reshape how gun laws work in America forever. What makes this even more stunning is that liberal and conservative justices agreed completely on something involving your constitutional rights. That almost never happens. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Are you subscribed to this channel? Because here's the deal. Thousands of gun owners miss critical Supreme Court rulings like this one, and then they get blindsided when laws change in their state. I break down these complex decisions into plain English so you actually understand what's happening. Hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss an update that could affect your rights. Seriously, do it now. I'll wait. Okay, let's get into what just happened. The Supreme Court delivered a 9-0 unanimous decision that deals with how courts must handle Second Amendment cases going forward. Now, you might be thinking, wait, didn't we already have major gun law rulings recently? Yes, we did. But this new decision clarifies something huge that lower courts have been getting wrong for months, and that's going to have a massive ripple effect. Here's what you need to understand. Back in 2022, the Supreme Court issued a landmark ruling in a case called New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen. That decision changed the entire framework for how judges evaluate gun laws. It basically said that gun regulations must be consistent with America's historical tradition of firearm regulation. If a modern gun law doesn't match up with historical examples from when the Second Amendment was written, that law is unconstitutional. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, here's where it gets messy. After that Bruen decision came out, lower courts across the country started interpreting it in different ways. Some judges said, okay, we need to find almost identical historical laws from the 1700s and 1800s to justify modern regulations. Other judges said, no, we just need to find laws that are similar in principle, even if the details are different. This created total chaos. Gun laws were being struck down in some states and upheld in others, even when the laws were nearly identical. Gun owners had no idea what was legal anymore, so the Supreme Court took up a new case to clean up this mess. And this is where the 9-0 unanimous ruling comes in. The court said, look, lower courts, you're doing this wrong. When you analyze gun laws under the Bruen test, you need to focus on broader historical principles, not just narrow specific details. Let me explain what that means in regular English. Imagine there's a modern law that says you can't carry a gun in a government building. A strict interpretation would require finding a law from 1791 that specifically banned guns in government buildings. But here's the problem. Government buildings in 1791 looked totally different than today. There were no TSA checkpoints, no courthouses with metal detectors, no massive federal office buildings. So if you demand an exact historical match, you'd almost never find one. The Supreme Court said that's not the right approach. Instead, you should look at whether historical laws reflected a broader principle. In this example, the principle might be that dangerous weapons were restricted in sensitive places where government functions happened. If you can show that principle existed historically, then a modern law applying that same principle to modern government buildings would likely be constitutional. Make sense? Now, here's the part that most people are missing. This unanimous ruling doesn't automatically make all gun laws legal or illegal. What it does is create a clearer roadmap for judges to follow. And that roadmap could go either way depending on the specific law being challenged. Let me give you a real-world example. Let's say your state passes a law banning guns in all parks. Under the old confused system, one judge might strike it down immediately, saying there's no historical law that specifically banned guns in public parks. Another judge might uphold it, saying parks are sensitive places. Total confusion. Under this new unanimous ruling, here's what should happen. The judge would ask, is there a historical principle about restricting guns in certain public gathering spaces? If yes, do modern parks fit within that principle? The judge would look at historical evidence about places like fairgrounds, public squares, and town commons. If those places had restrictions, and if the reasoning behind those restrictions applies to modern parks, then the law might be constitutional. If not, it gets struck down. You see how this changes things? It's not about finding a perfect match from 1791. It's about finding a principle that existed back then and asking whether that principle reasonably applies today. Here's a crazy stat for you. Only about 15% of people watching this video right now are subscribed. That means 85% of you are gambling with missing the next major legal update. Don't do that. If you're finding this breakdown helpful, imagine getting these explanations every time a major gun law decision drops. Hit that subscribe button so you're part of the informed 15%, not the confused 85%. Do it now. All right, so what comes next? This is the critical part. This unanimous Supreme Court decision is going to trigger a wave of new court cases. Here's why. Hundreds of gun laws across the country are currently being challenged in lower courts. Those cases have been on hold, waiting for clarity from the Supreme Court. Now that clarity just arrived, judges are going to start revisiting cases they put on pause. Some gun laws that were previously upheld might now get struck down because judges were using the wrong test, and some laws that were struck down might get upheld because judges were being too strict in demanding perfect historical matches. It's going to be a wild few months in the court system. Let me walk you through what this means for you personally. First thing, if you live in a state with strict gun laws, pay very close attention to legal challenges happening in your state right now. Laws about where you can carry, what features your gun can have, and who can get a permit are all going to be re-examined under this new, clearer standard. Some of those laws might not survive. Second thing, if you live in a state with more relaxed gun laws, don't assume nothing changes for you. This decision also means that some regulations that were struck down might come back. For example, if your state had a sensitive places law that got thrown out by a lower court, that law might get reinstated now that judges have better guidance on how to evaluate it. Third thing, and this is huge, concealed carry permit laws are going to be a major battleground. Several states have permit systems that require you to show good cause or proper reason to get a carry permit. Some of those systems were already struck down after the Bruen decision. But now, with this new unanimous ruling clarifying how to apply the historical test, states might try to defend modified versions of those systems. We could see a second wave of permit law battles. Now, quick legal note here. This is educational information, not legal advice. I'm breaking down what the Supreme Court said and what it might mean going forward, but every situation is different, and gun laws vary wildly by state. If you're facing a legal issue or need specific guidance, always consult an attorney who practices in your state. Don't rely solely on YouTube videos, even mine. Here's what most people get wrong about Supreme Court rulings. They think a decision comes out and boom, everything changes overnight. That's not how it works. Supreme Court decisions set the framework, but then lower courts and state governments have to apply that framework to specific situations. That process takes months or even years. So even though we just got this unanimous 9-0 ruling, the real impact is going to unfold slowly over time. Let me give you a hypothetical example to show how this plays out. Let's say you live in a state that recently banned guns in all places of worship. You think that law is unconstitutional, so you want to challenge it. Here's what happens next. You'd file a lawsuit in federal court. The judge would look at this new Supreme Court ruling and apply the test. The judge would ask, is there a historical principle about restricting guns in houses of worship? Your lawyer would argue no. Churches and synagogues were never treated as sensitive places historically, and in fact, armed self-defense in religious spaces was common. The state's lawyer would argue yes, places of worship are similar to other sensitive locations that had restrictions, like polling places during elections. The judge would examine historical records, legal writings from the founding era, and previous court decisions. Then the judge would decide whether the modern law fits within a legitimate historical principle. If yes, your challenge fails and the law stands. If no, the law gets struck down as unconstitutional. But here's the kicker. Either side can appeal that decision. So the case goes to a circuit court of appeals. 3 judges review everything. They might agree with the lower court, or they might reverse the decision. And if the case is important enough, it could eventually go back to the Supreme Court for a final answer. This whole process could take 3 to 5 years. That's why staying informed matters so much. You need to track these cases as they move through the system so you know what is legal in your area right now, not just what might be legal eventually. Hey, 78% of people watching right now still aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the community of gun owners who get these legal breakdowns first. I'm covering every major Second Amendment case, every new law, and every change that affects your rights. Click subscribe right now so you're never caught off guard. Seriously, it takes 2 seconds. Now let's talk about what you should actually do with this information. First, check what gun laws are currently being challenged in your state. A quick Google search for gun law lawsuits, plus your state name will show you what's happening. Look for cases that mention the Bruen decision or this new unanimous ruling. Those are the ones that might change things for you soon. Second, if you carry concealed, review your state's laws about prohibited places. This is the area most likely to see changes in the next year. Laws about carrying in schools, government buildings, public transit, and private property are all being challenged right now. Make sure you know the current rules so you don't accidentally break them while courts figure things out. Third, stay connected to Second Amendment advocacy groups in your state. Groups like your state's gun rights organization, the Firearms Policy Coalition, and the Second Amendment Foundation are actively litigating these cases. They send out alerts when major decisions drop. Sign up for their email lists so you get updates in real time. Fourth, and this is important, don't assume you know what's legal based on what you heard online or from a friend. Gun laws are changing fast right now. What was illegal last year might be legal today, and what's legal today might be illegal next month. Always verify current laws before you carry or transport a firearm. Here's the part that shocked me when I researched this. Legal experts are saying This unanimous 9-0 ruling might actually lead to more gun laws being upheld, not struck down. That sounds backwards, right? Let me explain why they think that. Under the old confused system after Bruen, lower court judges were being extremely strict. They were demanding almost perfect historical matches, which meant lots of modern gun laws failed the test. But now, with the Supreme Court saying judges should focus on broader principles instead of narrow details, it's easier for states to defend their laws. They just need to show a historical principle existed, not a perfectly identical law. So, ironically, a unanimous Supreme Court ruling that clarifies a pro-Second Amendment decision might actually make it easier for some gun restrictions to survive legal challenges. Wild, right? But here's the flip side. This ruling also makes it harder for states to pass totally new types of gun control that have no historical basis at all. If a state tries to ban something that has zero connection to any historical principle, courts will strike it down much faster now. So we're likely to see fewer experimental gun laws and more arguments about whether existing laws fit historical principles. What does this mean for the future? We're probably looking at a sorting process. Gun laws that are loosely based on historical ideas will likely survive. Gun laws that are completely modern inventions with no historical parallel will probably get struck down. And we won't know which category most laws fall into until courts work through the cases one by one. This is going to take years to fully play out. And that's why you need to stay informed every step of the way. Laws are going to change. Court decisions are going to come down. Your rights are going to expand in some areas and contract in others. You can't afford to be in the dark about any of it. Speaking of staying informed, let me hit you with some urgency here. The legal landscape for gun owners is shifting faster right now than any time in the last 50 years. If you're not subscribed to this channel, you're flying blind. My next video breaks down the 5 states where gun laws are about to change dramatically and what you need to do before that happens. Subscribe now so you catch that video the second it drops. Don't wait on this. Let me wrap this up for you. The Supreme Court just delivered a 9-0 unanimous ruling that clarifies how judges must evaluate gun laws going forward. Instead of demanding perfect historical matches, judges now focus on broader historical principles. This is going to reshape hundreds of ongoing court cases and determine which gun laws survive and which ones get struck down. The impact will unfold over months and years, not overnight. Here's your key takeaway. Stay informed, know your state's laws, and track legal challenges happening near you. Don't assume you know what's legal based on old information. Things are changing fast. If you found this breakdown helpful, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. I put hours of research into making these complex legal decisions understandable for regular gun owners like you. The algorithm buries my videos unless people subscribe and engage, so you subscribing actually helps other gun owners find this information too. Let's build a community of informed Second Amendment supporters who actually understand what's happening in the courts. Click subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next video where we go even deeper into what these changes mean for your specific state. One last thing, this is educational content, not legal advice. Laws vary by state and change frequently. Always consult a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction before making legal decisions about firearms. Stay safe, stay legal, and stay informed.